What's the number one reason you see deals fail?
I think that people, they switch asset classes. They go from like what they really know to something else thinking that's better. When they shift, there's a lot of unknowns. And if you don't have good margins, you're automatically upside down.
I look at real estate this way. It's like the casinos, like you're the house. Odds are in your favor. You're always going to win as long as you keep playing. The only time you start losing is when you take chips off the table. One of the things that I always say with Brian and we talk about is you got to have 5 friends in your circle. Like in my friend group, I have the, I have the, you have the, then you have, and then it, and this circle is a good circle so that you can be successful in whatever you do business-wise or whatever you're trying to accomplish. You have to have these good, strong people in there. So normally you do the intros.
Yes.
This time I'm going to do the intro. Emil, welcome to the show.
Thank you for
having me. Good friend of mine. Good business partner of mine. So now you got to guess what Emil does just based on what you see in his name.
Real estate.
Okay. Listen, let me tell you how it started. So a few episodes ago, Brian emails me, and he usually emails me the name and he puts a link in a bio. I don't read the link. I don't read the bio. And so I get the name. He goes, hey, we have a porn star on the show, Sterling Cooper.
I'm really surprised you didn't think I was a porn star.
Wait. It gets better.
You said you guys are business partners.
So who knows in what?
Yeah, porn. So I'm like, all right, I bet she's going to be like super duper hot. So I'm going to ask her all these questions. So I'm like writing down all these questions going that like, I'm super excited that we got a porn star. So write up all the questions. I'm like, I wonder what she looks like. So then I'm like, let me just Google, see how hot she is. And then, so I Google and it's a picture of a schlong because it's a dude. I call him. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Why do we have a guy on the show? Why do we have a male porn star? I thought like it was going to be female, and I wrote all these questions. So ever since that episode, I've been guessing like what the guest is all about, and I've been so wildly off on some of them, except for Busy Gold.
You were like,
Busy Gold is like, I was like, you're a Olympic skier. And she goes, close. I used to train for that, but she's in like psychology and like self-help space. So I was way off.
Technically.
But yeah, definitely real estate. So Emil, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Can you give us a background about you, like your childhood, where you grew up and how you got to where you're at? And then we'll...
Oh, you're going that deep?
Oh yeah, we go super deep.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you should. Start with your social.
You have it, I think you have it.
That's true.
I was born in the former Soviet Union.
I thought it was Harrisburg. No.
in now it's its own country called Azerbaijan. I was born in a city called Baku. So we left there when I was 8, lived in real Russia for a couple of years. And then when I was 10, I moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Grew up there, came to LA in 2000. And went to school here for about a year and then got into real estate in 2001.
And we joke about this, your background, your background as far as your ethnicity and...
So my grandfather came from Ukraine, Jewish, mom's Armenian. So I'm confused.
And what's the inside joke that we have about like
my sister,
all the benefits? Well, the sister too. Yeah. Your sister's hilarious.
We had a genealogy thing that we did like at 23andMe or something, and it had that I was 49% Jewish and 51% Christian, Armenian, and my sister was backwards. And so I was a college dropout, and my sister's an Ivy League lawyer, went to school at UPenn, went
She's
to
like $3,000 an hour.
Yeah.
She handles
M&A,
like complex
attorney, cases. So we just said that 1% made all the difference.
So Emil and I go way back. We've done probably north of maybe close to 50 million worth of deals.
I think more than that.
Sure. But we've done some fun stuff together. We've been through the way we met is one of my reps. I wish it was a stripper, but it was actually not that fun.
It was a porn convention.
Yeah, I was running a mortgage banking, and one of my VPs came to me and was like, hey, can you come and meet this company? Because we want to do business with them. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to get out of this office. He goes, it's 2 floors up. We're on the 7th floor. They're on the 9th floor. And we met and we just started talking shop like just going back and forth,
Yeah,
and
we
forth.
both didn't want to have the meeting pretty much because I'm like, what are we going to talk about? Another
so where's the
wholesale
time?
lender pitching us on a product we already have. And so they're like, well, like they're 2 floors down. They're going to come down to see you. I'm like, okay, great. So kind of the same conversation. And then we all meet in our conference room. And then we talked about whatever residential
Investments.
lending.
We didn't even talk about what we're
Well,
like
residential lending
initially
was
there.
about 30 seconds. And
Yeah, and then
I told him, hey, we do apartments, we do commercial, we're a commercial lender, blah, blah, blah. And then it just turned into like a one-on-one dialogue. And that was the beginning of, our
beautiful
journey.
friendship.
Yeah.
So go back after you moved to LA, industry wise, like what
I
did
worked
you?
for initially I came here to do movies, right? Because
Mhm.
I was a part of my TV crew in my high school, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do film and television. Come to LA. Worked in the space for about 9 months. Initially, I pulled pictures for like a production company and a talent agency company called Acme Talent and Literary, and I got an internship, and then they hired me to do assistant work. So I was like, figure out who was the right person to cast and things like that. And then the president of the company had like an opening. So I started doing distributions and figuring out how residual checks work. And it was all very interesting. I just realized that people are very two-faced and rough, and I didn't want to be a part of that business. So I was like, it's not a journey I'm going to, go on. So I switched my major to finance.
How old were you at this time?
20,
Okay.
19, 20. Yeah. And so I got married super young too. I got married at 20.
Love your wife.
Yeah, I love my wife too.
Yeah.
And so
With your wife Anna, one of my favorite things is around Christmas time where she does the elf.
the elf. I mean, our kid suspends belief.
Elf on
Elf on a shelf,
Listen,
but it's like
my wife did the same. She did one this year to kind of mimic what Anna was doing. And dude, it was hilarious. I think we were like sharing elf.
He was looking forward to it. I mean, every day,
every year.
This is what she's doing today. I mean, she's running out of ideas. It's been years, but the elf is something. Yeah, I look forward to what happens in the morning because I'm usually the first one downstairs.
I think we'll post one of the videos of the elf. Like it'll just boom.
The one where he's snorting coke.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah.
It was sugar. It was sugar.
Yeah.
It wasn't real coke.
Powdered sugar.
Powdered
But
sugar.
Go on.
So it was 20, and then I was working stocks and bonds, and I was like I don't understand why stocks trade at 20, 50 times multiples. Let me get into something I do understand. So I sought out a real estate job, started working as a reception / admin at a mortgage company. And then eventually was a processor, became an underwriter, ran a team of people, became a partner, and was in that firm for 10 years.
What year? From what to what?
2001 until 2011.
Okay.
And then in 2011, I formed Forbix. It was just me and 2 other people. And then Ron.
We have an
joined me.
inside joke about that
We
name.
do. Ron joined me. About a year later, we opened up Forbix Financial and we created the HUD lending. And so started doing everything we were doing before, residential, commercial, construction, started still acquired properties, bought, sold, like the same stuff we were doing together, building stuff. And so, kind of grew into something, morphed into something more than we expected. And
morphed is an understatement. It's more like it got steroids and then it fucking just blew up to like what? How many units you guys own?
Over 1,000. I mean, we built
bought and sold a lot too, but built.
We built about 1,300 ground up, and then we repositioned about 1,000. And I think about 1,200 units.
Was it like 700 million overall at some point? Assets under management.
Yeah, it's still pretty close.
Yeah. What are some interesting things that you see in the market today? I know real estate is fluctuating, and I know a lot of people want to get into real estate. And so like I get calls all the time like, hey, Makan, I want to get into real estate. I want to kind of get started. What advice do you give me? I'm like, if you love it, get into it. If you don't love it, it's going to fucking suck. Don't get into it. Well, you're getting hit up a lot by a lot of guys wanting to get into the business. Sure. What are you telling the new guys?
I mean, like what you said, if you're passionate about it and you feel like you want to grind and do it, align yourself with a team because you have to learn somehow, right? And so either you got to get a proper coach that's going to coach you, or you have to align yourself with a team and be a grunt for a while until you work your way up. There's no shortcut. Unless daddy gives you a $10 million check and says, go play.
And you'll still lose it.
Yeah.
You'll lose it.
You still need someone to kind of give you guidance. But I think you got to do in my opinion, you do what's familiar. So if I have a network of people that I know needs to buy a bunch of houses, maybe I'll stick to residential. If my surroundings, there's a bunch of people that do commercial real estate, then I'll maybe focus on commercial. So you have to have a center of influence around you.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Go for it.
We asked this question to Navy SEALs who've been in war, who've killed people, who've been shot out. I mean, they've been in like combat. They've seen the worst the world has to offer. And we asked them a question, and I'm going to ask you, I want to hear what your answer is.
Okay.
So 2 people that we know, Tyler Kavanaugh, Navy SEAL, French Legion, left after he finished 7 years of service, came in and went into real estate, commercial real estate, raising capital, and worked for a large housing developer. And the other person, Austin Hancock, who was a Marine, saw a lot of combat, and he went into development, real estate development. Both people I asked this question, I'm going to ask you the same question. What do you think is more difficult or more stressful? Being in war, combat, or in real estate?
Well, I've never been in war or combat.
What would you imagine that they would say?
I would imagine for them, it's real estate. But you're going to ask me why?
Yeah.
I think combat for them is familiar. You know what I mean? And I think that they're just doing it on their own, right? I mean, you're a part of a team. But when you're doing real estate, I think it's unfamiliar territory. Your people are relying on you. And I think that there's a sense of responsibility, like a kid.
Close.
Mm-hmm.
So they both said, by far, real estate is much tougher. Entrepreneurship is much tougher. And the main reason was
You can't turn off the switch.
you can't just get evac'd. When you're in real estate and you're committed and you're starting a project,
No help button.
there's no help button. There's no
Good enough.
evac. There's no halo. You can't
There's no
get.
dude to pull you as you're fucking dying. You're on
You're on your own. You're on your own, and it's in your fucking head on how much you can kind of like put through and get through.
I don't know. I still would think being in combat's worse. But
you can always get evac. But when you're in the middle of a project, I mean, we've been. Well, then the pain is over.
I guess
the pain is over.
Okay.
But in commercial real estate, residential financing, any of that, you're once you start a project, you're committed to that project, and whether hell or high water, you're going through the pain until you come out of the other side. It may not be pretty.
It may not be dry, but
yeah, you may not be dry, but it's painful. So that's interesting that you said that. It is, yeah. Real estate is very, very tough, and so for a lot of people that want to get in it, they see what is it? The guy that says, everyone congratulates you when you're pregnant, but they don't see how many times you got fucked to get pregnant. You know what I mean? And I feel like real estate.
I never heard that before.
Oh, I've heard that shit.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. And so like everyone sees the end result of real estate, but they don't see all the hard work that goes through all the hours.
I think people see like pretty pictures online and they're like, oh, that's so cool. I want to get into that. But it's like, I think the analogy of birth is a good one. I think that when you're delivering that child, I mean, I'm not a woman. I've never experienced it. I just happened to be in a room once while my wife experienced it. And I could just imagine that maybe you can equate that pain to what the process feels like.
Yeah.
But when it's done and your kid's born, you're like, oh crap, this is so awesome. I think people underestimate the process. So they like the beginning, right?
Yeah.
They like
idea of starting
the final product.
Well,
and the final product.
Whether you're comparing,
the middle.
childbirth, they like the beginning,
Yeah.
I like the end, but the middle part sucks, right? Your wife is pissed and she's in a bad mood. Hormones are up and down. She thinks she's fat, she's not, but either way, and so you
We're
go
not
through the
talking
same. Yeah,
No, we're talking hypothetical.
hypothetical, but
Yeah.
you're going through the same issue with the real estate.
Yeah.
You have cost overruns, credit spikes,
Blowing up gas lines.
somebody steals your money, all things have ever happened to us, right? So
One of the interesting things in real estate that I've noticed, because I've been more on the anti being online and anti like podcasts, and then he got me and dragged me into it. And part of the reason why I never wanted to be on thing, because I see all these fake real estate gurus that have millions of followers, and I'm like, what is this guy saying? None of this makes sense. You're talking about Section 8. Section 8 is crap. I've done it. I got my face rubbed in the mud with it. I've done this. I've done that. None of the stuff they say online makes sense.
What
And
about
then-
the phone call we had the other day?
Which one?
The one looking for
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
God, jeez. Help me. But like you see all these gurus online, they're like real estate. They've got millions and millions of followers and they don't nothing. And then you see guys like us where we're like sleepers. How many followers do you have on Instagram? 0, maybe 1.
I don't have an account.
Yeah, exactly. Don't have an account, don't have a large following, but you've got this wealth of information and wealth of knowledge because we're busy actually doing what these people claim that they're doing.
You mean we're making mistakes?
We're making the
and
mistakes.
talking about them.
But we're doing a lot. But we're again, you got to make mistakes.
There's no other
to
way.
win because any person in commercial real estate or residential real estate that comes to me and says, "Oh, I've never had a bad deal. I've never had a deal go sideways."
They're full of shit.
I'm not going to partner with that guy. I want someone that's like, I made a lot of money. I lost a lot of fucking money. I made a lot of mistakes. I excelled in this. I failed in this, but I've got 20 years of taking it on the chin and failing and winning and failing and winning, then you're like, okay, this person knows what to do and what not to do to succeed in commercial real estate or anything for that matter.
I think people need to understand credit, in order to succeed in commercial real estate. And, so my background and your background is that we've been in lending for 25 years. And so if you're out there trying to get a lot of people come in and say, oh, I want to do a fix and flip. Yeah, a lot of products out there. Didn't used to be.
Yeah.
Now the market's saturated because Wall Street investors who used to invest in commercial real estate are like, well, that's a little scary because cap rate driven. Let me focus on residential because it can still cash flow depending on the property. And yet I could still sell it to a consumer who wants to live in it, right? So their stop loss is that value of the property and the debt service or the cash flow from the property. As long as it breaks even, they're happy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in commercial real estate, you have to be 25% positive cash flow with a lender to make it work. And as the rates spike up,
nothing pencils.
Nothing pencils, right? So that's why all those investors on Wall Street are flocking to the, residential real estate 1 to 4 investment properties and saturating the market. That's why the yields on those drop. You know? And so you have to kind of ebb and flow. Sometimes you're going after big projects because money's loose. And sometimes you're doing ADUs.
Well, look, the funniest thing is every time we've done a project, I always do the shitty projects. The ugly, nobody cares about it. It's just whatever. And we're like, it's not sexy. I'm like, yeah, but it makes money. You know what I mean? Like we can't talk about it. We can't advertise it.
Like the container store?
Yeah, like the container store. Look, the interesting thing is, and sales tax just went up in LA.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so sales tax.
Again?
Yes. So sales tax went up.
To homelessness.
But no, here's the beauty of it.
There's lots of things going to
Here's
homelessness.
the beauty
I just
of
see
it.
them out there still.
We actually are benefiting from not benefiting from it, but we built a 20-unit homeless shelter. And we see all the waste because we went through the whole process. We built 20 units out of shipping containers, 4 stories before shipping container construction was a thing.
Not even really doing it.
It's not because it's so difficult.
It's hard to finance.
It's hard to finance.
Lenders want to
difficult.
have the stuff on the property. So when a lender's lending you money on a construction deal, they want to see gradual growth. Well, you did the foundation. Now you put up the wood frame. Now
Plus,
you put a roof.
you can't take the foundation and run off.
Yeah. Containers?
You can take them and run off. So it's
Like
financing is financing
Well,
is
you
very
guys
difficult.
played Tetris. It's not like you're just going to be able to pull the
You would
Tetris.
think it's Tetris.
You think it's easy.
You think it's Tetris. You're like, you know what? All I'm going to do is, have this built in a warehouse and I'm going to put it on my piece of property. What about the infrastructure? The sewer line, the power line, the famous fire hydrant that costs $600,000. There's all these things that you don't account for and ends up.
By the way, the fire hydrant does not cost $600,000, but
it did for us.
it did for us.
Because it delayed us for 6 months. And the interesting thing is when you go through pre-construction inspections with the city and you say, hey, I want to build this. What's needed? They're like, oh, nothing. You're fine. Okay. So you buy the property, you start the project. Now you're in balls deep. And then they're like, oh, you're in balls deep.
Did you run this by the fire department?
Yeah, we need a fire hydrant. We need you to redesign this. And you can't now not do it. You have to do it. Yeah, you're pot committed. So
hence birthing a child.
yeah.
Sounds like a pain in the ass.
It is.
Well, it is. That's why,
Now it's up and there's people inside and live there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to just the difficulty of how everyone on the outside in thinks it's such an easy thing, that what they don't see is all these things that actual pros go through. You know what I mean?
Social media is
really skewed it.
It skewed it because nobody's seeing the actual process. They're just showing the Gucci belt and the finish line.
Yeah. And the Lambo and the Rolls Royce
watch,
and
that's probably all rented.
That's clickbait. You know what I mean? I think that's, a lot of, I've seen some of the stuff we've discussed before where, the gurus that say, oh, it's so easy, just do this and that. And all those people that pay for the books, pay for the lessons, et cetera, they ultimately then come to us for loans. They're like, oh, I want to buy this property. It's worth $2 million, but I'm getting it for 1.5. I want to get a 1.5 loan. I'm like, okay. And what do you do?
And as a HUD lender.
Yeah. Or even as a private lender, you're like, well, what makes you think it's worth 2? He's like, oh, well, I did this and this and that's worth 2. You have any experience? No. And who's going to manage it? Me. I'm like, okay, well, so why don't I just buy it myself then for $1.5 million if that's such a great deal? What are you bringing to the table? You don't have any experience. You don't have any money, right? And you want me to put up all of it as a lender. It's not how it works. You have to have skin in the game. So a lot of those people, pay for this expensive books and this and that. And I'm not saying some of them don't succeed. The question is, they would have probably succeeded anyway.
The magic, one thing I don't understand is that you read a book, you do all this, but when you go to a lender and you present a project, the lender will tell you everything from beginning to end.
Right.
And they'll underwrite the deal better for you, like safer for them, because they want to protect themselves. So like when he has a deal, for example, or someone that doesn't have, like Michelle just does enough, if you don't have any experience in real estate and you find a deal, you go to a lender like Emil and say, hey, Emil, I want to buy this piece of property. What are you going to do? You're going to underwrite it to protect you as the lender, in turn, basically do the work for the investor and say, yes, it's a good deal, or no, it's not a good deal. All you need is a good relationship with the lender. And I think that's paramount what a lot of people don't.
Data. I think it's data. Like you
see a lot of deals.
You have deal fatigue. Like you just see so many deals in so many different areas. So you're like, okay, here's a pocket in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's a pocket in Texas. You kind of know what the expenses are.
Like, what do you guys fund? What last year or the year before? How many number of deals do you guys fund, and what dollar amount is that?
They range from 500,000 to 50 million.
How many units?
How many units?
Last year did you guys like?
Last year sucked because
the year before.
The year before, anywhere from 200 to 700 million.
So you're doing 200, 700. How many number of loans is that?
10 a month.
Okay,
so 120 loans.
Well, your average loan amount's pretty large too.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, like if you're talking residential is probably 8 to 10 loans a month, and private loans or fix and flip stuff is maybe like 4. And then you've got the larger transactions, which you close maybe 1 or 2 a month, but they're typically 5 or 20, right? Mm-hmm. So the volume goes up depending on what it is. And it's cyclical, right? When rates are low, you're locking in a lot of cheap money.
Yeah.
When rates are high, you're doing a bunch of bridge debt with the hope that money goes cheaper soon.
Yeah. So when you got $700 million worth of loans that you're funding annually,
right? And
you have all these borrowers, some from very little bit of experience and high experience. What are the number one things that you see in a borrower that has got no experience versus the ones that have a ton of experience when they come to you?
They usually get misinformed by somebody first, and then you have to kind of re-educate them. And so people come, even you have a doctor, a lawyer that says, okay, I'm buying an investment property, and somebody pitches them an apartment building in Beverly Hills as an example. And they're like, oh yeah, my expenses are, here's my rent, here's my taxes and insurance, and here's some maintenance fees. And I'm like, who's going to manage it? Where's the vacancy if somebody moves out? Is that accounted for? No. I'm like, okay, so let me walk you through it. You got 5 units,
reality.
5 units, $5,000 each. Here's 25K times 12 is 300,000 a year. Ready? Okay, great. Well, take off 5% for vacancy, right? That's 15 grand off. Take another, property tax is a big number because usually in Beverly Hills prices are more. And then on top of property taxes, take 5 grand per unit per year for everything else, including insurance, property management fees, et cetera, et cetera. That's layman terms math, right? And then when you do that, your net income is a lot less. And so I'm like, that's going to be the reality of what you're going to make. Now, if you're okay with that number, buy it. But that's really what the number is going to be. And I think that's where the disconnect happens with their pitch. Now, if they're pitched by a more professional, like a JLL or a Marcus Milich, a bigger company, they typically have proper underwriting that they're putting out there where the net income is correct.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of mom and pops where it's like, 4, 5, 6 unit deals where a lot of expenses aren't accounted for. And then you have a faulty sense of what you're going to make, and you won't ultimately make it.
Well, the good thing is when you work with a lender, the lender does all this work for you. So you don't really have to be super careful. Like if you're buying a piece of property and you want to know it's a good deal, don't talk to your broker because the broker's getting commission. They're like, yeah, it's a fantastic deal. It's a good time to sell. It's a good time to sell. Good time to buy? Yeah, it's a good time to buy. Should I buy this property? Yeah, buy this property. But when you go to a lender,
for commercial, it works like that. But for residential 1 to 4,
it's emotional.
It's more emotional.
It's emotional. Should I buy this?
Cash flow, but even if it's cash flow on the 1 to 4, you can still finance it without all of that, the expense factors and the management. Like at the end of the day, I tell people, if you're going to break even and you're happy with it, go for it.
Well, the thing is, 3 years ago, how were people making money in real estate in general?
They were leveraging really low rates, and they have a delta between a 3% rate and a 5%
cap rate. Interest coming in. So they were doing that. Last year, what are people doing?
Lowballing
and buying low. So the market constantly shifts, and you have to know exactly where the market's headed before you make your investments. Mm-hmm. And the relationship with a lender is what I found to be the most valuable for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, we met because of our lending background, and then when we started working together, me partnering with you worked really well because I'm like, I find deals, I'll look for the deals, look for the opportunities, and I know you're a lender. So as far as getting financing, it was easy, natural progression, and us, partnering together ended up being
perfect. I wanted to sit at my desk and you didn't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to sit at this. I want to be out on the field. I want to find deals, get them. And then, so for real estate investors or people starting real estate, I think finding your Emil and your lending partner, and you guys lend nationwide too, right?
We do, yeah.
But you're not open to new friends. Just me.
Just I have enough
Just
friends.
me, right?
Not
Not enough
friends.
more friends.
Yeah.
So find your own Emil. But generally, I think you have a pretty good relationship with a lot of the investors, and it's a lot of repeat investors.
It is.
Is it not?
I think that it takes sometimes, you have to be honest with your customers. And there's also, any salesperson, you're buying perfume or food. Some people are going to pitch you for the sake of pitching, and some people care about what you're going to get, right? So for us, it's long-term relationships. So sometimes I don't win the deal in the beginning because I tell the person, hey, look, this isn't going to work, or these are the numbers you're going to get.
What's the number one reason you see deals fail?
You mean like loans not go through?
Yeah, like or deals that you're like, you shouldn't buy this piece of property.
I think that people, they switch asset classes. They go from like what they really know to something else thinking that's better. And then they think that whatever they've learned from the different, like let's say you're into apartment buildings and now you're getting into retail. And you're like, oh, it's easier, right? And then you don't know all the little things that go on in retail that are completely different than multifamily, right? So I think when they shift, there's a lot of unknowns. And if you don't have good margins, you're automatically upside down.
What about out-of-state investors? A lot of people in California, they're like, oh, I want to buy Section 8 in Florida, or I want to buy Section 8 across the US.
They apply metrics that work in California to out of state, and it doesn't work.
Give me an example of something
A simple one.
A simple one.
But it's basic math. Okay, so you're in West LA and your average rent is $3,000 a month, right? Your insurance is going to be, let's say per unit, right? Whatever, $500 a unit, right? Well, your property taxes are whatever. Your utility bills are, let's say, $100 a month. Well, let's say let's use insurance as a basic example. Let's make simple math. $300 a unit is the insurance. Your rent is $3,000, right? That's only 10% of the $3,000, right? So that's a 10% expense factor on insurance only. Now you move to Texas. Average rent is $1,000. The insurance isn't cheaper, so the $300 equates to 30% as an expense factor. So using that simple example, just overall, if you're doing a deal in Texas where your rents are $1,000 or $1,200 a month, overall your expenses for everything is about 50% of your total gross. Whereas in LA, it's probably 30% of your total gross. So people are like, oh, it's about 30%. They apply that to the Texas property, buy it, fast forward, the expenses are 50%, and now they're not making any money. So that's where the big disconnect is. They apply metrics that are here and they think Oklahoma City or Georgia or Florida or Texas is the same, and it's not.
Have you had any investments out of state and you're like, it ended up being much better than you had originally anticipated?
No.
Never.
Not even one?
I mean, better. So there's been deals that I've expected to do worse that did better. And there's deals that I expected to do better that did worse, whether they were in-state or out-of-state. But the fundamentals with which you go into the deal, like we built a lot of properties in Washington State, Seattle area, like Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey, and so these are all suburbs of Washington area, right? Why are you laughing?
Because you have a lot of wins there, and you have one eyesore, one sore. It's what's it called? The mistake on the lake.
The mistake on the lake.
So one of the investments is called the mistake on the lake, but some of them are like home runs, like you would not believe. Like one you sold for what, $125 million or something not too long ago. Right. But like it's interesting that you're mentioning all that. But we're going.
Well, the reason why is because there's certain things you just don't expect. The building was literally called Mistake on the Lake, but we relabeled the views on Fifth. The reason why it was called Mistake on the Lake because everybody hated the building. It was it was truly an eyesore. And so it was, I think it was like the state office there, and it's in the Capitol. It's in Olympia, Washington.
It's a 9-story building, 10-story building. It's a pretty big.
It's a tall building.
Yeah,
it is 9 stories. Yeah, and so the building itself we essentially made it into like a shell. It was just metal. A piece of frame metal. And
you took a mistake and made it a bigger eyesore. An eyesore, and it became a bigger eyesore.
Our partner, Ken, who is a local developer in Olympia, Washington, who's an awesome guy and built a lot of great units.
I've heard you say a lot of good things about him.
He's a good dude. Yeah. And so we've been partners for a long time. And so he saw the vision, designed it, built it. So the office tower conversion, that was our first adaptation.
This is a office, taking office and making it residential.
Worst thing in the world. Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I remember this is like 4 or 5 years ago, and projects take like 5 years, 10 years. Right. And right now I'm seeing a lot of reports saying office to residential, great idea in the beginning, but not really penciling out, not really working because of?
Well, I think that you underestimate that sometimes building something from scratch when you have a perfect set of plans versus walking into existing conditions is different. So By the way, office conversions do work. And
Yeah,
they
of
work
course.
really well if you have the right bones. So if you have the right ceiling height, the right depth of the office
Plumbing,
building,
if it's plumbed already, you
well,
save
you
in.
can't plumb
No, like in
a
a
bunch of
medical
bathrooms.
building,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
you already have that versus not having it.
The biggest thing is coring and reglazing the building. But the mistake on the lake, it wasn't that it was bad. It was just we got sued by, I call them tree huggers, because they didn't want the building there to begin with. And they wanted to tear it down. They were trying to take it by eminent domain. And we fought them for 2.5 years. And then went all the way to Supreme Court. Ultimately, we won. We got a judgment against them, but they delayed us about 2 years.
Yeah, and that's
so-
pretty common here in LA as well, in a lot of major cities where if you and again, this
But
is
that's
something
after we pull permits.
exactly.
We
It's
pull
always
permits.
after permits.
Yeah, we pull
And the thing is, you can't underwrite political risk
You cannot,
or a crazy neighborhood. You just can't underwrite that. So you're just doing all your checks
It's a
and
gamble.
It's a gamble. Every single time it's a gamble. The deals that I thought this is going to be a home run, this is a piece of cake, something comes out of the woodwork and you're like, fuck, I did not imagine this happening.
But if you want
Really?
no risk-
This
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
but if you want no risk, go get a job.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you're scared, go to church. There's a there's a
I'm
funny,
learning so much today.
and what we learned is when we were building the shipping container project.
Right.
Okay.
Did
in
any of them fall off during the Tetris?
No,
Okay.
no, thank God. I mean, I was expecting for one of them to fall and crush a car or crush something or some horrible to happen.
He was standing across the street.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we're good.
Go ahead,
We're
go ahead.
good. We're good. But there was, what was I saying? Goldfish memory too. But what I was saying is, I don't remember what I was saying.
You're talking about the containers.
Oh, the containers. Yeah. So in our budget, we have everything, all the contingency displays, everything is there, all the expenses, everyth's covered.
Minus your $600,000 fire extinguisher.
No, we're building, right? And then we're framing out the foundation, because you have to frame everything with wood, right? I come back the next day, someone stole all our wood to make a fire because they were cold, homeless. So I was like, okay, we got a $30,000 cost because the wood got stolen from all the forms that we had created. Again, this was not in our budget. So we ended up having like an extra $100,000 of unaccounted for expenses because of security, because this particular neighborhood had a lot of homeless and they just needed firewood. And our framing was the firewood.
It was cheaper to build with steel, but we didn't know that. So they wouldn't steal it.
Yeah.
You can't burn steel.
Yeah. Steal the steel.
But the other thing was when you had a planner drawn out and the fire department shows up and they're like, what's this?
Yeah.
How are we going to turn our car around? You're like, well, I have the plans. You're like, not our set of plans. And they show you a different set of plans.
Yeah.
So fire department had one set of plans. We were building to a different set of plans, thinking they were the correct plans. They were both stamped.
Both approved.
Both approved. So things like that happen. That costs you money.
So which one do you use?
Well, the cheaper one. The cheaper one.
Until you have to redo them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you always have.
You
side
roll with the
conditions.
punches. You roll with the punches.
You can't- yeah. The unforeseen,
Yeah.
for sure.
Why are you smiling over there, Brian? You're just hearing the stories of like the horror stories of real estate, not all the glitz and glamour, right?
Well, plus there's that other project that you guys got into.
Which one?
Remember how you always like to say you do all these shit projects with no glam and it comes out great. And the one that you do that's all shiny, fucking beautiful.
Never pans out. But it's just, again, I look at real estate this way.
Mhm.
Do 100 deals.
Mhm.
You got 3 that are going to go bad. 80 of them are going to go great. And then a few of them are not going to do well.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. You're always going to have a deal that always goes sideways. And the thing is, with investors or people don't have any experience in real estate, they do deals thinking every single one's going to be a home run. And they're going in it with like, no one bats 1,000. You know what I mean? Not every deal is going to pan out. It's a long-term game. It's like the casinos. Like I think real estate is this, like you're the house.
Mhm.
Odds are in your favor. You're always going to win as long as you keep playing. The only time you start losing is when you take chips off the table. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's markets that are going to like go down, markets are going to go up. Like right now, the market's very difficult because Trump is intentionally trying to create a lot of chaos into the market to bring the 10-year treasury down so they can refinance a lot of that debt that they have. But that is causing a lot of turmoil and a lot of stress for a lot of investors because you're like, should I invest? Should I buy? Should I not buy? Should I be on the sidelines?
Just look at the stock market every morning. It's all over the place.
Yeah. And you can't sit on the sidelines because you have staff, you have projects, you have things to pay for. So you got to put the money in motion. So what are you advising your clients right now? They can't sit on the sidelines because they have expenses. They need to, have the money work. What advice are you giving based on the environment that you're seeing right now?
A lot of guys are going into debt right? So we lend out money, whether
Yeah.
it's regular loans with 5-6% rates. Well, probably should say 5.5 to 6.5, but yeah,
Yeah.
from HUD debt to Fannie, Freddie, whatever, right? And then we also do private debt, and so there you're making loans that are 10, 11%. And so in many cases, when people already have real estate, for the short term, they're putting money into private loans, thinking, okay,
Meaning they are coming to
lending.
you guys and saying, "Hey, I have $1 million.
What should I-
Please,
yeah,
please
invest-
lend
yeah.
this out for me."
So we'll secure it like against a real estate, like let's say Bank of America would, and we assign the interest to
Mhm.
that investor. So we essentially service the loan for them, collect $5,000 a month, take our servicing fee, and give the rest to the investor, and they're making money that way.
I actually ran the numbers, to be honest with you, because I looked at a lot of deals that I did. I'm like, dude, my yield was like 5% or 6% on that.
Mhm.
It's still considered a home run
Mhm.
out of the park. But if I had gone back in time and just lent it out hard money and earned 12% or 14%,
Right.
I would have been way ahead, way ahead
But
without any of the
there's a
headaches.
bunch of reasons to do stuff. Like if you're saying, hey, I got money on the sidelines, I don't know what to do with it, you can put it into private debt. But you have certain investors that are coming in and they're saying, okay, well, look, I'm a doctor, lawyer, I make too much money, right? Well, their issue is what? Like they
Taxes.
need to have less taxes,
Yeah.
right? So to the extent that they can get depreciation to offset their normal ordinary income, well, then they're going to invest in a real estate project.
How does depreciation work? Can we explain depreciation and what that is for people that don't understand how depreciation works?
Well, here's a table,
Okay.
right? And it's worth $200,
Okay.
$300. I don't know, there's inflation going on.
Okay.
So that's $300, right? So eventually that table is going to be useless, right? So you're going to throw it away. Same applies to real estate, but real estate doesn't really go down in value, but it's treated like a table. So initial value of this piece of house is $5 million. And typically you allocate 30%, or maybe depending if it's brand new or not, 20 to 30% of this thing as land. You cannot depreciate land because there's nothing there, but the actual building structure you can depreciate, right? So on $10 million, if we're allocating 70% for the building, you have $7 million worth of depreciation. Sometimes you take a straight line method where you take it over the next whatever.
Let me stop you really quick. So if you use fluoride, which what we learned from doctors, it lowers your IQ. I've been using fluoride all my life. He's been using fluoride all his life.
I stopped a couple years ago.
Yeah, but it's still IQ's drop. So
It's going back up though.
a lot of people
Uh-huh.
that are currently using fluoride need a simpler explanation of how depreciation works.
I make income and I have a paper loss, which is not a real loss.
So let's
where-
say I make $1
$100.
million a year
Mhm.
and I'm paying half of that in tax. Oh, let's say I'm making $100,000 a year
Mhm.
and half of that goes to taxes. I'm keeping $50,000.
Mhm.
How do I
Mhm.
get more of that tax back? How are the rich not paying taxes?
You have a building that brings you, forget, your salary is your salary. You're making
Okay.
100,000. You're probably paying 30,000 in taxes, but it's fine.
I live in California.
Sure. You're paying 40,000 in taxes.
Okay.
And so then you also now own a 4-unit building.
Okay.
And that brings you $100,000 in taxes, right?
Okay.
And after expenses, you're netting $30,000,
Okay.
right? So normally on that $30,000, you would pay taxes on that $30,000, the
Yeah.
same 40%, right?
Yeah.
In lieu of that, because you have depreciation on that kind of income, you'll probably wipe out all of the $30,000 of net income taxes. So it's zero. And on top of that, create a loss. So maybe you have 40,000 of depreciation, 30,000 wipes out the true income from the apartment building itself.
Yeah.
And the additional negative 10,000 can offset your
Income.
normal income. So instead of paying taxes on 100,000, you're now going to pay taxes on 90,000.
So if let's say you have high income,
Mhm.
does it make sense in some scenarios you make a lot of money to go buy a piece of property to use that depreciation to offset your income?
It is, but you can only offset it up to a certain amount.
If you're a real estate professional.
But if you're a real estate professional,
What is that? 8. What's the form that you got to fill
I
out?
don't know which form, but you have to spend more than half of your
Obviously,
life.
51%
Yeah,
of
half
your.
of your life during the the day to be. So you and I both classify as real estate professionals because that's more than 90% of what we do.
100% of what we do.
Well, maybe yours is 80% because you do other stuff, right?
No, it's pretty
pretty
like,
close,
pretty up there.
close, pretty up there. Okay, but so as
So
long as you
let me
qualify-
explain it to Brian. I think he doesn't understand fully. You want to know how the rich don't pay taxes? Okay. So the way they don't is depreciation.
That I understood.
Okay. Depreciation is you buy a piece of property,
You can depreciate it.
you can accelerate the depreciation
Just like
as
a
well.
car and
Exactly.
other stuff.
Yeah. So you accelerate the depreciation and you take that paper loss It's not an actual loss, because the way depreciation works, it goes, the AC is going to last 5 years. So in 5 years, it'll be worth zero.
roof's gonna
The windows,
last
the
10,
roof, the
yeah.
electrical, the plumbing, all that stuff inside this building. Land, you can't depreciate, because land is land.
But anything from the land up
Land up, that's why he said 30% is
Goes-
the land.
stays the same.
Yeah, so out of $1 million property, 300,000 of it is considered land and you can't depreciate that. 700,000 of it you can play with.
Right.
This $700,000 you can depreciate over 28 years, 29 years, or you can accelerate it but over 5 years.
Front load the first 5. Well, not all of it. You just front load the first 5 and take a lot less for the remainder of the term.
So if you, let's say you sell something and you have a $1 million gain, you could buy a piece of property, accelerate the depreciation so you get a huge loss, and take that tax loss to offset your income, so you minimize your tax expense. And that, how often is that done? How often do you see that with your clients doing that?
All of them, especially the ones that have other passive income that's coming in. They want to offset it. There's only one crappy part.
We don't want to talk about recapture, because you could always 1031 exchange and pass it down the road.
Correct.
So, and the recapture is a very nasty thing. When
If you
sell,
sell and buy something else,
You fuck.
you give back all the depreciation, pay tax on it.
plus penalty.
No, not really penalty.
There's a penalty
There is?
on premium on recapture.
Okay.
But if you 1031 exchange, you can kick the
You
can
can
down
do
the
it
road.
forever until you die and pass it to your kids.
And then you get a step-up basis.
Mhm.
So that step-up basis basically creates a higher, lower taxes for your kids.
Your kids, you have a lifetime exemption. You could pass on, I think it's
$100 million. No,
No,
25
12 and a half
per
person.
kid, per
12 and a half per adult.
spouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a husband and wife that each want to pass on 12.5 million to their kids right now, that number changes. Sometimes
It might
it's 10.
go up.
It might go up.
Yeah.
I thought it was 5.
Used to be.
No, it used
long
to
time
be.
ago. Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's 12.5 now. But
So you got 25 million from your mom and your dad.
tax free until when you
Yeah.
pass, you can pass on to your kids tax free.
Gotcha.
And then anything above that, then you pay inheritance tax.
And what you do is,
Appreciate the assets.
but you can also borrow against it. So if you create equity, you can always borrow that money tax free and use it for other investments as well. So real estate has a lot of advantages for tax purposes as well.
I think it's knowledge, right? You have to so what happens is a lot of people, they go to their accountant, and the accountant has accounting knowledge, but doesn't necessarily have deal knowledge. And so they'll tell you how it's done, but they won't tell you how to apply it, because they don't do that. Now, some do. Some really are, real estate investors that also do accounting, but you kind of need to live the kind of real estate life and learn from different people, because you're going to get pitched different ideas from different people.
And the beauty
of apply the good ones.
And the beauty of what you do is, because you're a lender, you get to see everybody and all the techniques that they use for taxes, for asset protection, how they deal structure, and they see all that. So when a client comes to you and says, hey, I want to buy something, I need help, your advisory services, I think, is much more valuable than just the lending. I think equally so, because you see so much deal flow, so many different structures, and you could be like, this is how I would structure your deal. This is for tax purposes. This is for asset protection purposes, and this will get financing.
100%. I mean, we had a conversation with a client earlier, I think this week or last week, but he's a U.S. citizen, but his partner is a foreign national, and the partner owns 90% of the company, right? And so he's like, well, how do I finance it? I'm like, well, partner's a foreign national. It gets muddy. I mean, there's only 2 or 3 products that can be structured that way. But I'm like, look, if you create a new LLC, a new entity, I'm like, you have a good relationship with your partners? Like, yeah, perfect. I'm like, okay, so you create a new company, an LLC, and it's going to be owned partially by the other company, but that company is going to own, let's say, 20% of it, and then also make a large loan, whatever the investment's supposed to be, to the other company. And in the operating agreement, you can own 80% of the other company, because you're a U.S. citizen, your partner's not, right? And then you can have an agreement until all the money is returned to that company. You don't get a penny as a partner, right? So this way, that full investment's protected, and then some. And this way, you can get better financing than otherwise you would by creating this kind of tax structure. I'm like, run it by your accountant, run it by your lawyer, make sure it's all good.
And it'll work.
And it'll work.
And when they tell you, yeah, it works, come on back. And when you get the warm and fuzzies,
yeah.
we'll do the deal for you.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between you and what you offer versus like you go to traditional Chase Bank or Wells Fargo or any of those banks, they just don't offer that personalized service where
They don't know it.
Well, they don't know. They see it. They just are like, I'm an hourly employee. All right, check the box here and move on. But you guys, you're more like a specialty boutique shop where you have.
Well, we have to be different, right? Like, because if I'm competing with Chase or Wells, I mean, you're all kind of offering similar products. Now, one may be more conservative in one type of asset class. We might be not as conservative in apartment buildings, but more conservative in commercial. They're less conservative. Yeah, you always have that interplay. So whatever we have to have some sort of competitive edge to be able to educate clients about what better to do or what product to take. So we're not paid to sell a product, right? So whether the guy takes a 5-year fixed or she takes a 7-year fixed or you take a 30-year fixed, I don't care, right? For me, it's just, what are you trying to do? And what's your best alternative? And so you might come to me and say, like, I'm going to sell in X amount of years. I'm like, if you're going to hold it for a certain amount of time, the loan comes with a prepayment penalty. Most likely in 3 years, rates are going to be lower than they are today. So lock in the deal for 3 years instead of 5, because you want the prepay to expire by the time you're ready to do something else. And so it's just advice. And it comes from making your own mistakes or locking in, a rate and, thinking that was the best you could do and locking in a prepay you can't get out and it drops after. It's like,
Yeah.
So it's a
similar thing in commercial real estate. When I was a broker and I was working with clients, I would see so many different ways of submitting offers. And because of that deal flow, you see how to structure offers properly. You see what offers work, what offers don't work, what structures work. And then you see how, even when they raise capital, because you're like, how are you getting financing for this? Oh, like, I got this GPLP structure, I'm doing this and this. And you're like, whoa, you learned so much just from that. So you can become a better advisor when you're dealing with your clients. Brian, it seems like you got a question.
Nope.
Is it all going over?
A little bit. But
Yeah.
good thing I hang out with you every day, so I can
Oh, I know.
build it back.
And that's one of the things that I always say with Brian and we talk about is you got to have 5 friends in your circle. You have you and I are boys and we're both on the same thing. But like in my friend group, I have the doctor, I have the accountant. My father's an accountant, so it helps. So I have the doctor friend, you have the accountant friend, you have the social media influencer marketing
But is it
friend.
a real doctor or a dentist?
He's a doctor.
Okay.
Then you have the party animal, because look, you got to like blow off steam. So you need that party animal friend. And then you got you. And this circle is a good circle so that you can be successful in whatever you do business-wise or whatever you're trying to accomplish. You have to have these good, strong people in there. Who's in your circle?
Well, it's funny. I remember I tore my calf and Max tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
We had the doctor.
Okay.
Partner.
Yeah.
Got that guy. You always,
because you're very successful as well. And I want to know who's in your core group.
I mean, like for me, I just want genuine people around myself, right? So my core group is people that have different mindsets. So I kind of like having somebody with a completely different outlook than me. So I'm a real estate kind of pragmatic guy, right? Even though I'm opportunistic. And then you've got someone who's not in real estate, but real estate-ish, like in tech, as an example. And they're looking at things from a different lens, right? That's great. Or somebody who's a venture capitalist who knows how to run businesses and create processes. Because sometimes when you're staring at a screen for too long, you're stuck in your own spreadsheet. You need somebody from the outside to kind of look in and be like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you have like, okay, let's switch it. Let's change it. Or sometimes you're just busy with stuff and you need someone to kind of give you a little bit different angle or guidance. And so that's it. And I think you need someone who just blow off steam or be a emotional support animal kind of thing. Like you have to be able to vent to somebody. You need somebody like that. That's for sure. A friend, or in this case, my wife, and that's it really. Yeah.
So who's your party animal friend?
I don't party.
You need one to blow off steam.
I had that in my 20s, man.
It's still good. It helps with stress. And I know we always have competition with one another. Our last competition was a weight loss competition.
You won.
Why did I win?
Because Thanksgiving was around the corner.
No. Because he doesn't know what an animal I am. I'll go through hell just to win.
Bro.
Just to win.
I just want to say, Emil, for like 8 weeks, you fucked up my eating schedule. I'll be like, Makan, you want to go eat this? No.
No, I got to win. No, I got to win.
But he used to he'd leave like cookies and donuts on my desk just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Oh no. Because he knows I don't eat that stuff. He brought in the stuff from Portos.
Yeah.
Those
Cheese.
cheesy.
That's his weakness.
That's
yeah.
my weakness.
Dude, that's everybody's weakness.
Not me.
No.
Not me.
I don't have other weaknesses. That's the only one I've got.
Just the cheese rolls?
But I did not eat them. I brought them back and I put them on his desk.
It won't do anything for
He
me.
wouldn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I'm good for like 6 before, from getting the box to my car.
But it goes to say like success is all mindset driven and it's
100%.
discipline. And the amount of like we joke around with one another a lot because we try to test each other's discipline. You know what I mean? I'm like, who's more disciplined? Like, how much more discipline do you have? How much more hell can you put yourself through just to win? Because it helps you. It helps you in business. It wasn't about who can lose the most weight or who can get more fit. It was about like how driven are we?
But there also it wasn't a bad bet.
No.
The outcome was perfect for both of us. We both
was-
won or
got
lost. We
healthier.
dropped a bunch of weight. We got healthier.
Yeah. So we do a lot of these things, and it's good to have friends like that where you have healthy,
competition.
healthy competition, and also pushing each other
Right.
to get better. You know what I mean? You have friends who are like, let's go out and get wasted. Let's go get drunk. Let's go get, blow or do this or do that. And it's like, how are you going to grow?
You're not.
That's it? That's all you got? You're not?
You're not.
You're like one of the thumbs up that I get on my comments. It's like, I talk about this complex thing, Michelle, and then I get this like thumbs up.
Well, because like the partying and drinking thing to me has never been a thing. So like that, I don't really associate with those kind of people. I'll go to those events with some friends, but it's of no interest to me.
Mhm.
I don't like being around drunk people to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So-
What are some of your hobbies?
Me? Oh, I have so many. I work out. You know that. I used to kickbox most of my life. I still do it a little bit.
I don't think you knew this about him. Finance guy and boxer.
Kung Fu master?
Yeah.
Actually, it was kung fu.
Yeah.
I was doing. So I used to get my butt kicked when I was like, the dark kid on the block in Russia, right? Because I look like both of you, and so everybody else was.
What does both of you mean? Look how white I look on the screen.
Yeah, you're very Persian looking, even on the screen.
Yeah.
I'm browner than both of you.
Dude,
It's true.
when we started, I used to like stare at myself on the
You
screen.
still do, bro.
I know. But like people would comment, they're like, how come this dude in the shirt is looking up? He's looking up. I'm like, I'm not looking up. I'm looking at myself on the screen. I grew up in a house with a bunch of mirrors, okay, as a child. So I'm so used to looking at
me,
myself all the
Only thing I
time.
look at is the timer.
Oh, I just always look at myself. But go on. I'm sorry. And I got ADD and like I like just, shiny things.
So I got my butt kicked until I was like 10 years old. Came to America. Was already feisty. My mom and dad could finally afford for me to start taking martial arts when I was 12. And by 14, I was probably this size, and I started doing, full contact battles.
And you
by
went to a
15.
religious school, did you not?
Oh yeah, I didn't know I was Jewish until we came to America, or really Jewish. And so when we landed in the South Central version of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where it's like not projects but very close to it, and we got a free apartment for 3 months, and my dad's like, "Oh, we got a scholarship for you to go to a regular school instead of a public school." I'm like, "Great." So I didn't realize that was a yeshiva academy. Yeshiva academy is a Christian school for Jews, and so I went to Yeshiva academy for like 2-3 years, and learned how to read and write in Hebrew. Went to Israel. It's great. And then when my parent could afford a house in a better neighborhood, I went to public school. But that's my.
And one of your famous lines is, "You're Jewish from the wrong side."
Oh yeah, I'm Jewish on the wrong side. Yeah,
Both
so
sides are the wrong
both
sides.
sides. Yeah. So in Christian, it's patriarchal, and in the Jewish culture, it's based on your mom.
So he can't use it to his advantage for either one.
yeah, it's
I
tough.
got the last name, so I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. He's Goldstein, so he's half Indian, half Jewish. We
Legit.
call him.
I got the same last name. You have the same problem I do.
No, we call him the Hindu Jew.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, that's his. I mean, he told me the name. I was like, oh, I like the name. Run it.
That works.
Yeah.
I've never met a half Jewish, half Indian person.
You know how
My sister.
Makes
ruthless,
sense.
like in business, how
Mhm.
ruthless he is. He's half Jewish, half Indian. Indians invented zero.
No.
Zero is
I thought
invented.
they invented
by-
infinity.
No, zero.
Okay, gotcha.
Remember Russell Peters? He's like,
Take it and go.
Take it and go. Yeah, exactly.
I saw him for the first. I mean, anyway, but yeah, it was funny. I have a couple that are Indian friends, and we went to a birthday party when our kids were very little, and they were all talking to each other in English. And I'm like, guys, you don't have to talk English to each other in front of us. It's fine. Just speak your own language. And they're like, what language is that? I'm like, I don't know, Hindi. They're like, there's like 8 people here, and we all have different dialects. The only common language is English, and that's how I learned that in India there's like
5,000.
1,000.
dialects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you know that?
Nope.
You look surprised. Nope.
Interesting. People are like, what part of India is your mom from? I don't know.
Guyana.
I'm like,
It's South America, not India. But yeah, it's interesting. I meet a lot of interesting people, interesting things, but the never gets old in real estate. I've been doing this for 25, 27 years, and every single day I'm learning something new. It's wild, is it not?
Well, it's evolving. I mean, technology makes everything different. Like
Mhm.
back in the day, you have to truly understand the areas to lend on them, and now you have all this tech.
now you got ChatGPT.
ChatGPT will tell you a lot of stuff. Just
Ooh.
double check it.
Help me get approved for my loan. ChatGPT.
Oh, 100%. I have
Or-
Grok, the other one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
XAI.
XAI. I just downloaded my wife has the Chat GPT. We're just comparing notes. It's genius. I mean, again, maybe if you pay for it, it'll be better.
Yeah.
It'll evolve.
Think it'll help you get permits faster?
No,
Never.
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 No, but you could try. How do I get permits faster? Sorry. Wrong input.
Move to another state.
Yes.
Pull a different
Wrong
permit.
place.
Wrong place.
Yeah. So what areas of lending do you guys specialize in?
Everything. Residential, commercial, construction. Like residential, you want to buy a house, we do home loans. You want to buy an investment property here or in Texas, we do those.
Nationwide?
Nationwide. And then for residential, there's certain states where we can do investment properties, but in California, we can do everything that's residential. Commercial, we're nationwide. And so it's anything from apartment buildings to retail centers to whatever. So, I mean, we have a lot of experience in a lot of different asset classes, apartment buildings being the main one, but also we own a bunch of retail properties. So we understand retail financing, of course, from car washes to high-end homes to bridge loans across all asset classes, industrial, all sorts of stuff, land development. So I think it's whether we do it in-house or we broker it to a lender we know, or we participate in a loan with another bank, we do pretty much everything under the sun.
I think the most valuable thing you guys offer, and I realized this right away, that is more the advisory. The sheer volume of experience you guys have in unique and complicated, very basic and to the most complicated types of deal structuring, that information helps me with my deals as well. Whenever I'm looking at a complicated project or a very simple project, it's nice to be able to like reach out and say, hey, Emil, I'm doing this thing. What do you think? You're like, your exit's going to be an issue because the buyer's not going to be able to get financing on it. So rework the numbers or rework the deal. And that information I find really valuable.
Well, it's real time. It's changing, right?
Yeah,
so
it's constantly changing.
Constantly changing. So like you have let's say you have the one deal you were telling me about before where you got a house, let's say you add 180 or 280s, right?
Yeah.
And you have now 3 units. Well, let's say Fannie
looks
Mae,
at it different.
they're looking at it different. Like, well,
Yeah.
we're not going to finance it because it's got 280s.
Yeah.
But you could do it differently, and I gave you that.
So what happens is the interest rate ends up being more, so you got to factor that in on the buyer who's going to be looking at the property on the exit.
Or else we have clients that come and say, okay, I'm buying a condominium in this building. And it's
What's the number one thing with condos?
well, just how many
Non-warrantable, because
exactly.
they get lawsuits.
Well, it's not even lawsuits.
The HOAs.
Lawsuits is one of them, but like there's a couple of really basic fundamental things where you have to understand it. There's different rules when you buy to live in a condo versus if you buy to
invest. Because investor concentration can be over 10%.
Can be over
It'll
51%.
Or whichever.
Yeah. So if it's more investor than not, it becomes unwarrantable. If you don't set aside 10% of your budget to reserves, it's unwarrantable. There's a lawsuit. It's unwarrantable. It depends on kind. If it's a defect for construction, like lender's like, well, if there's a construction defect, you guys are suing.
We don't know how much it's going to be.
We're not going to lend on that, right? So few lenders would once they get ahead around the deal on residential properties. And then there's still lending out there, right? But instead of borrowing money at 6%, you're borrowing money at 7%. Or
which
if it's 7,
affects
it's 8.
the sales price at the end. Because then if a buyer comes in thinking they can get 7% and they end up getting 7%, they're going to ask you for a discount. So if you're buying the property, ask for a discount up front because you're going to have to give it down the road.
The funny thing is
information.
But it's common sense, right? Like anything
for us.
say, no, I'm saying in general for the general public, like 2 plus 2 is 4, right? If let's say I'm buying a commercial piece of property today and I'm going to lock in a rate today that's 7% and my mortgage is $1 million, I'm paying $70,000 a year. And if I have a prepayment penalty, and you want to buy the building from me, you're going to have to assume my loan. Now you're going to look at my building for $1 million and have to assume my mortgage is 7%. You can look at his building next door for $1 million and you can get a brand new mortgage at the time. Let's say it's 2 years out at 5%. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to buy his. Why would I buy yours?
Or you discount mine by $200,000.
Exactly. So his payment is going to be $200,000 more per year, right? So you figure my penalty expires in 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to take yours at a discount of $400,000.
Yeah.
To match what his is.
Yeah.
And it's still math.
So I really don't want to do this because I don't want to share my secrets. How do people find you and get a hold of you for information on their deals and financing and all that other stuff? And I don't want to give this information out because I like to gatekeep and I don't want to share you. But
so just give your information.
So just give your information. And I'm gonna.
I was talking about you give your information.
No. Go ahead.
It's Forbix.com. Forbix.com. Phone number's on there. 818-290-87.
You're actually giving your phone number out.
Yeah, let them know.
Wow. Okay, you're gonna get a lot of dick pics.
I love it.
Feet pics.
I hope
feet pics. He likes feet pics, by the way.
Feet
so
pics.
send him a lot of feet pics with hair. Hairy toes.
Oh, hairy. Now
hairy
you're talking.
toes. Hairy toes.
Hairy feet
Yeah.
pics. I like. This is going to be a really cool blurb. You know. Emil from Forbix loves hairy feet pics.
Do you know how? So originally, when they set up the company, there was 4 dudes, and the inside joke about Forbix is 4 dicks that started the company. But
Yeah, that was something he made up. I'm kidding.
yeah, yeah. It's an inside joke with the company.
It's
but
an inside joke.
so Forbix.com, they can find you. You guys are located in Calabasas.
Calabasas, yeah.
Been in business for God knows how many years.
Since 2011, this company, and then
Yeah,
before that,
lots of experience. If you guys need any help with commercial real estate, or you got to be a pro. Don't call him, ask him stupid questions. Just make sure you know like what you want, and they can reach you from there.
For sure. Thanks.
Thank you for
Appreciate you coming on.
coming on.
Thanks for
We know
having me.
it's busy.
Sorry I bored you to death, but it's okay.
No, it's a good lesson.
Thank you.
But I taught you something about, you know.
Look, he's leaving me
Dialect.
hanging. He's leaving me hanging, people.
You want to shake my hand? You sure? But you have those beads.
Oh yeah, the beats.